Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to Marquette University Law School, the virtual Lubar Center, as we release the latest edition of the Marquette University Law School poll. I'm Mike Goucher, and I'm joined, as I always am, by the poll's director, Professor Charles Franklin. Charles, good to have you here with us today. And let's begin by telling folks when we were in the field for this survey.
Sure. We were in the field August 4th through 9th, just last week. We interviewed 801 registered voters and 694 likely voters. There's a margin of error of 3.9% for the full sample of registered, and that margin of error goes up to 4.2% with likely voters. The partisan makeup is right in line with what it normally is. It's 45% Republican, 45% Democrat, with leaners included in that. And it's 30% Republican, 29 Democrat without leaners. That happens to be both of those right at our long-term average.
Charles, before we get to the horse race, the head-to-head between President Trump and the Democratic nominee Joe Biden, let's talk about a couple of things here. One of them is voter enthusiasm. What did we see in this survey that tells us how people feel about the upcoming election?
Yeah, I think this is fairly striking. In 2018, for example, we saw an imbalance of enthusiasm and commitment to voting, with Democrats having an advantage. But this year, across three different measures, we see almost identical levels of engagement among Democrats and Republicans, and considerably lower levels of engagement among independents. So, for example, 87% of both Democrats and of Republicans say they're certain they will vote this fall. That drops off to just 60% among independents. Among people who say they're enthusiastic, who is very enthusiastic to vote, that again is almost identical, 64 or 65% for Dems and Reps, drops off quite a bit among independents. And then our last measure of this is, how much do you follow politics in public affairs news every day? Again, Democrats and Republicans are nearly identical, 72 and 71% follow news about public affairs most of the time, and that drops off to 45% among independents. So when we get to talking about likely voters, we're talking about people who are absolutely certain to vote, but there's no real partisan advantage on that measure. What there is independents who are less likely to vote dropping out of the likely voter sample as opposed to being included in the registered voter sample.
How many people that we're talking with, Charles, intend to vote by mail? We have seen a massive interest in voting by mail for today's primary election in Wisconsin. What are we expecting to see in November?
Well, we're seeing a little bit of flux there. Just over 30%, 35% actually, say they intend to vote by mail in the fall, and about 46% say they'll vote in person on Election Day. And what's left is about 12% who say they'll vote early in person. That's down just a little bit. In May, it was 43% that said they would vote absentee by mail. But when we look at the spring primary, the number of absentee mail ballots was in the 60% range, upper 60% range. So I think perhaps we see a little bit of flux on this and a little bit of uncertainty about how people will actually vote by Election Day, because a number in the mid-30s would be a lot less than what we saw in the spring. And, Tuesday in Wisconsin is primary day, and we've seen record-breaking absentee ballot requests for that election. So I think perhaps we're underestimating how many people will ultimately vote by mail. But with the current uncertainties about the process and about the Postal Service, I think we want to watch this very carefully as we go through to Election Day.
So let's get to the matchup in the presidential contest, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and look at this month's survey results and contrast that with what we saw in our last poll, Charles.
That's right. And I should say that we're switching to reporting likely voter numbers now. As we do every election year, We stick with registered voters until August, and then we switch to likely voters. We'll also give you the registered voter results as well for comparison, but we're going to emphasize likely voters from here on in. In this month's poll, Joe Biden has a 5-point lead among likely voters, 49 to 44% for Trump. When we look at likely voters in June, that was a 6-point Biden lead. So a 1-point drop in the margin from June until now. When we flip that to registered voters, then Biden's lead is 6 points with registered, and it was 8 points with registered in June. So in both of these comparisons, Biden's lead is just slightly less than it was a month ago, more like the middle single digits as opposed to the upper single digits.
Charles, quick question about the regional demographics here, if we could touch on this. Are we seeing any movement at all in places like the Green Bay Appleton market, in north central Wisconsin? Are we seeing any change in those numbers?
We're seeing some fluctuation, and it's a little hard to know how much is genuine and persistent change versus how much is, sample to sample fluctuations. What we see consistently across multiple months is Biden with a strong lead in the city of Milwaukee and in the Dane County Madison media market. Sorry, it's more than Dane County, the Madison media market. We see Trump with a lead in the Milwaukee suburbs, but Green Bay looks more competitive than it sometimes has. We've had a slight Biden lead and a slight Trump lead there over the last few months. And in the rest of the state, the north and western part of the state, we had seen Biden just barely ahead last month, coming back to a Trump lead in the north and west there. So Green Bay has fluctuated a little bit, but not as much as the north and west of the state. And the Democratic strongholds in Milwaukee and the Madison market have remained strong for Biden. The suburbs around Milwaukee are fairly competitive, but with Trump leading.
Let's talk job approval numbers for the president. How's he doing in this poll?
Well, he's slipped again a little bit. We've seen his job approval peak in the winter when it got up to 48%, a sort of high water mark for him. It fell off to 45% approved last month and 44% this month. But his disapproval numbers also ticked up a little bit from 51 last month to 54 this month. That gives him a net job approval of -10. That's tied for his second lowest job approval on net of his entire presidency. And his all-time low simple approval number is 42%. So he's still a couple of points higher than that. The striking thing about President Trump is how little his approval numbers have fluctuated over time. It's a very narrow range, but he has fallen off in approval by about 6 points over the last 6 months or so.
I want to look at favorable and unfavorable ratings for both the president and for the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden. Let's begin with President Trump, somewhat similar to job approval, but a little different, Charles.
Yeah, approval and favorability track pretty closely with incumbents. Occasionally, you'll find someone who's better liked than their approval, or occasionally the opposite, somebody with a more negative personal favorability. With President Trump, they're about equal, 42% favorable, 55% unfavorable, so that's a little bit worse than his job approval number. Joe Biden is underwater on favorability, as he has been for most of the year, 43% favorable, 48% unfavorable, a net -5. This is still sort of unusual. Until 2016, we had not seen presidential candidates who were both seen as more unfavorable than favorable. But in 2016, we saw that for the first time. And now this year, again, we're seeing it with the Democratic and the Republican candidates more unfavorable than favorable, Biden a little bit less so. part of this simply reflects partisan polarization. It used to be that the opposing party didn't hold exceptionally negative views of the other party's candidate, but in 2016 that became the case, and it's largely held as we've come into 2020.
I hate to ask questions off the top of your head. You hate to ask a pollster that because, you're a guy who wants to rely on the numbers. But are Biden's numbers better than Hillary Clinton's in 2016 in terms of the negatives? We saw such strong negatives for her in that contest.
They are at the moment a little bit better. Yeah. Trump was exceptionally negative, but of course won the state in the election. Clinton was less negative, but still solidly negative. With Biden, we saw just a 2-point net negative last month, net negative of 5 this time. So he's in a little bit better shape than Clinton was. But it's a dynamic process, and it could change, especially as we come to the nominating conventions and we kick off whatever kind of unconventional campaign we're going to see this fall.
Let's walk through some of the issues that the president has had to deal with, and we'll begin by discussing the COVID-19 situation. This has been a problem area for the president in our most recent polling. How did he fare in the August survey?
Yeah, he slipped off just a little bit in approval of his handling of the coronavirus. He had been at 44% last month and the month before. That slipped to 40% approval this month, so a little bit down. He's steadily come down from 51, his high mark in March, to 44 and 44 and now 40 this time. So there has been a bit of a decline in his handling. Also, his disapproval number on coronavirus has been moving up a bit.
What about his handling of the mass protests that we've seen around the country since the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier this summer?
Little change in evaluation of how he's handling the protests. He was at 30% approval in June. He's at 32% approval this month. So a 2-point change, very modest difference there.
And while we still have double-digit unemployment right now in response to what's happened with the pandemic, the president still is doing okay in terms of his handling of the economy, Charles.
He is. This has been and remains his strong suit. He's at 51% approval on his handling of the economy, 46% disapproval. That's up 1 point on approval and unchanged on disapproval from a month ago. And so this does seem like it is still his strong suit. And that holds despite the fact that people became a little bit more negative in their evaluation of how the economy has done over the last year in this month's survey. And so he's holding on to that strength even as people are seeing the economy in a continuing worsening situation.
Series of questions about COVID-19, and I guess that we could begin by asking the very simple question: how worried are people today about getting the virus?
There's been some general decline in the percent saying very worried, but in August that moved up by 8 or 9 points of more concern. And at the same time, the people who are not at all concerned moved down. So there does seem to have been a bit of a shift between June and August, with a bit more concern and very much concerned that reverses the downward trend we'd seen from March to May to June.
The wearing of masks, that has become a much talked about topic in American society today. How do Wisconsin voters feel about being required to wear a mask in public places?
Yep, there's strong support for it. 69% agree that people should be required to wear masks. Disagreement is, in the 30% range, the reverse of that. But there are big partisan differences on this. Republicans, 43% agree with wearing masks, 54% disagree. Not a real lopsided difference, but more disagreement with masks than agreement. Whereas with independents, it's 71% in favor of masks, and with Democrats, 93%. So big partisan differences. I don't think we'll be surprised by that. But a side issue that's interesting is if you look across the regions of the state, in every region, there's a majority that favors wearing masks. And so that's interesting in that our urban areas have very high support for masks, but even the rural north and west, 60% agree that masks should be required in public places.
Our kids are getting ready to go back to school around the state of Wisconsin, college students getting ready to return soon. Are people in this state comfortable with the idea of kids going back to school?
It's pretty evenly divided. 45% say they're comfortable, 48% say they're not. That's down a little bit from when we asked it last month. However, with parents of school-age kids, there's a little bit of more comfort, 53% comfortable, 45% uncomfortable. So maybe a little counterintuitive that the parents are a little bit more comfortable than the public at large is.
And what about the prospect, Charles, if kids go back to school and we see an increase in cases? Should businesses and schools remain open even if we do see some increase in the number of COVID cases?
Right. And on this, 40% say they should stay open. 54% disagreed that they should not stay open. Again, people with school-age kids, even 44% of them agreed that they should stay open. So we're again seeing this slight difference between the general public and commitment to keeping schools and businesses, we added in this second question, open. But there is some reluctance to do that if cases start to go up.
A few moments ago, we mentioned the mass protests in this country dealing with not just the George Floyd situation, but also with other perceived injustices in this country. And we asked a number of questions about this topic. First of all, the mass protests themselves, Charles. How do people feel about these protests over the last few months?
Well, there's been a fairly substantial drop in support for the protests. In June, 61% approved of the protests. But this month it's fallen off to about evenly divided, with a split in the 40% approve, 40%, mid-40s approve and disapprove, and a sort of even split. So that's a pretty big drop in approval of the protests. We've also seen, this time we asked whether the protests had been mostly peaceful or mostly violent. A little bit more say it's been mostly peaceful, but it's still about an even divide in the mid-40s for both of those. So this has been a matter of some change. Now, in contrast, favorability to the Black Lives Matter movement has fallen off a little bit, but not a whole lot between June and August. So I think the views of the protests themselves have evolved and become a bit more negative. And as I say, about an even split on viewing them as mostly peaceful or mostly violent. So this is an evolving change. It's interesting that at the same time that approval of the protests themselves fell off, we did not see much of a change in the reaction to President Trump's handling of those protests, going up from 30% to 32% approval. So I think these two events are affecting each other, the president's performance and the protests themselves. And the public is not as favorable to the protests as they were in June.
Charles, briefly, one of the things we did in this poll is we asked people to say whether or not they supported a number of different policy issues. We won't go through them all right here. People can look at the data after this conversation is finished. But what jumped out at you in some of the big issues that we asked about?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, the extremes. Which issues have overwhelming support or overwhelming opposition? And on the one end, defunding the police gets just 17% support. It was about 25% a month ago with a slightly different question. And at the other end, requiring all insurance to cover pre-existing conditions, 92%, excuse me, support that. So here are two opposite, two issues that define the opposites of very strong majorities. Now, we saw some strong majorities for a couple of others as well. 75% think that we should have 12 weeks of paid maternity leave, and 79% think there should be a path to citizenship for children who were undocumented children who were brought here as children, grew up in the U.S. These are the people covered by the DACA program right now. So that's quite strong. I think another thing that's sort of interesting is we asked about enacting the Green New Deal. And opinion was fairly split, 37 in favor, 32 opposed. But what was really striking was the 31% that said they didn't know. When the Green New Deal slogan first came out, there was an awful lot of public debate and certainly political debate over that. But either people have forgotten about it or the message of what a Green New Deal was just never got through to about a third of the public.
Let's wrap things up by talking about Tony Evers, and two questions. First of all, how do people think he's handling the COVID-19 pandemic? And then also, how's he doing in his job approval numbers?
Yeah, Evers has seen a bit of a tick up in both job approval and coronavirus approval. 57% approved of the job he's doing overall, 37% disapprove. That's up just a little bit. It was 54-38 last month. And on handling the coronavirus outbreak itself, his approval is 61%, disapproval 35%. That's up from 58-37 last month. We had seen him start the epidemic period with a very high 76% approval on handling the virus. And it dropped off a bit in May and June, and now is rebounded by about 3 points this month.
Two final things, Charles. First of all, where can people get the full results from this survey?
The press release itself is at law.marquette.edu/poll, P-O-L-L. And if you look at the top of that web page, you'll see a tab for results and data. And if you go there, you will find the entire questionnaire, the answers to every single question. This time we're putting that out for both likely voters and for registered voters, so you can check out the differences between those two if you like. And there's a methodology statement and crosstabs, so feel free to go and browse around.
And in the days leading up to the Democratic National Convention, actually the day before really the convention starts, on Saturday, we're going to be releasing some more information. Everybody knows that the convention in Milwaukee has been scaled back to a large degree with no delegates and no speeches, but there still is technically a convention. And so we're going to be doing something on Saturday for media and for other folks that looks at Wisconsin and the state of the race. What are we going to be doing?
Well, we're going to take a big view. We'll obviously mention what we found in this month's poll, but we're going to look at some of the bigger results that we've seen throughout the year. Where are the strengths for the Democrats? Where are the strengths for the Republicans? How would this race tilt if we look at a very energized electorate with high turnout versus less turnout? And what are the organizing issues that are really affecting voters this year? Finally, a little look at which groups are really strongly aligned with one party or another, one candidate or another. But more importantly, which are the groups that are pretty evenly divided and might be the most likely source of change over the course of the fall?
Still a battleground state, no matter whether it's a big deal in Milwaukee or maybe a much smaller deal. So, Charles, thanks very much. And thanks to everybody who tuned in today for the latest poll results. We'll be back with more throughout the fall campaign. Charles, thanks very much, and we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you.